Good afternoon, Year 11 students. Welcome to the class. I'm your Humanities and Societies teacher, Mr. Matthew Deane, and today we will be discussing the very important topic of euthanasia. We will be identifying the issue, we will be exploring the issue of euthanasia, we'll be establishing the facts, and we will be looking to broaden our knowledge on the topic of euthanasia. So just before we get the lesson underway, I want to remind all students that today's slideshow presentation and handout is available for everyone to download from our student portal, and I have placed a number of copies of the handout on all of the desks, so if you could please take one and pass it on, that'd be very well appreciated. Thank you. So let's identify the issue. Over the coming weeks, we will be investigating the issue of euthanasia in Australia, and specifically the South Australian case, as the South Australian Parliament are going to be establishing a joint committee into end-of-life choices. So why is euthanasia an important issue in our society? Euthanasia is an important issue because it speaks to the soul and humanity of people and our human kindness, that we don't like to see others in pain or suffer unnecessarily. As Catholicism teaches that pain and suffering should not be prolonged needlessly. This is from the Catholic ethical thinking for students. Yet, the Catholic Church has opposing views to the majority of society on the issue of euthanasia. Independent public polling in Australia has demonstrated, as you can see, that 87% of people are in support of allowing people with an illness who have no chance of recovery and are in tremendous pain the right to die. That was a Roy Morgan poll conducted on the issue. The issue of euthanasia is important for its moral, ethical and personal implications for all who live in South Australia, as the Parliament has recently been debating the issue and is looking to establish a committee to investigate it further. So, who in society does this issue concern, you may be wondering? And that's something that we'll be pondering and discovering throughout the coming weeks as a part of our ongoing investigation looking into euthanasia. Here is a picture of the Dutch Parliament. Euthanasia is an important issue for everybody. It is highly likely that someone you may have already experienced, a close friend or family member pass away through a long and painful terminal illness. The issue of euthanasia is an impassionate and strongly felt issue amongst those of the Christian faith. The Netherlands recently updated their euthanasia laws, where it used to not be technically permissible for a doctor to conduct a euthanasia procedure, and the Dutch Parliament looked to rectify this, and as a consequence, the Dutch Parliament received over 60,000 letters in opposition to euthanasia and it being removed as a criminal offence for doctors to perform the procedure, despite 90% support for euthanasia in the Netherlands, according to a World Health Organization report on the matter. So let's all explore the different views of euthanasia that are in our Australian society today. And let's further discuss and look into who is saying what about euthanasia. Euthanasia is a very passion-invoking, sensitive issue. It has the power to polarise and divide a community along lines of what people see as an issue of compassion or morality. We as a class, we will be contributing to this community discussion in a mock exercise and become a part of the who. But we'll discuss that later on in the lesson. The information, these links, as you would be aware, they're all going to be available on our school class portal link. But this is just a small example of the types of groups in our community that are contributing information and to the overall debate of euthanasia. I would strongly encourage you all to watch the Q&A episode on euthanasia. It has some really good insights on the issue, so it's just that one there, if we will click on that later on. So let's establish the facts. If we are going to be investigating and looking into such an important issue, such as euthanasia, we need to all have the skills, all have the knowledge, and be using the correct terminology. So what terminology is used to describe such a complex issue? So what are the important terms that we should be aware of? One of those, the most obvious, is euthanasia. Euthanasia, according to the College of Canadian Doctors, euthanasia is knowingly and intentionally performing an act that is explicitly intended to end another person's life. That includes the following elements. The subject has to have an incurable illness. The agent knows about the person's condition, commits the act with primary intention of ending the life of that person, and the act is undertaken with empathy and compassion and without personal gain. This is according to the College of Family Physicians of Canada. There are other important terms such as assisted suicide, palliative care, and voluntary euthanasia. These are all very important terms in the ongoing debate in our community about euthanasia. So where can we turn to as a class for reliable sources of information on euthanasia? Obviously, the internet is a great source of information, but we must all be aware that just because you see it online doesn't mean that it's a reliable source of information. So I would encourage all students to be diligent in the information that they're seeking, and also our school library has excellent resources and should be our first port of call when searching for further information on this issue. So let's broaden our own perspectives on euthanasia. Let's have a look at the Islamic faith perspective on euthanasia. The Islamic faith has a very strong position when it comes to euthanasia. The faith believes that God has a plan for all persons on earth, and that your deeds and actions on earth determine where you end up in the afterlife. And it is against their religion to take a life, to take your own life, and it is strictly forbidden within the Islamic faith. So what is the Buddhist perspective on you could say, on the other end of the scale? The Buddhist religion officially doesn't have a position on euthanasia, but the Dalai Lama, head of the Buddhist faith, has been quoted as saying the following, and this is from the Journal of Ethics. In the event a person is definitely going to die, and he is either in great pain or has virtually become a vegetable, and prolonging his existence is only going to cause difficulties and suffering for others, it may be permitted, according to Mahayana Buddhist ethics, to allow euthanasia. But there are competing sides of the argument within the Buddhist faith, and it is the underlying matter of it is against their faith to destroy life, and because they believe in reincarnation, that if you end your life in such a way through euthanasia, you are determined, or sort of predetermined, that that's a similar situation that you will come back in another life, in the afterlife. You'll be reincarnated in such a position once again. So what are the insights of the Catholic Church on euthanasia? A 2007 survey conducted by Newspoll demonstrated that 74% of people identified as supporting the Catholic faith supported euthanasia. 15.9% neither supported or disagreed, but only 9.8% disagreed, according to a 2007 Newspoll survey. So contemporary views on euthanasia in Australian society is that, we've been over this, but that Australian members of society support euthanasia, but the Catholic Church has an opposing view to that of the general public. The Catholic Church opposes euthanasia, as the Church believes that all life is sacred, and also believes that human life should not be prolonged unnecessarily, but it seems that these two positions come into conflict with one another. So in 2008, the Archbishop Philip Wilson made a submission to the Federal Parliament Senate Committee that were investigating the matter of euthanasia. And the Archbishop's submission was not based around doctrine, was not based around the Bible says this, the Bible says that. The Archbishop took a different tack, that he was putting forward the views of the general public, that he felt that he wanted to convey the common good in society, being the position that he put forward was that human life is a very special thing, and either you or that of another person should not be permitted or legislated to take the life of another person. The Archbishop, in his Senate Committee submission, stated that the ill in our community are not a burden who should be removed by euthanasia. That quality palliative care, that was a term that we discussed earlier, is an available option, and euthanasia may undermine the very important doctor-patient relationship. So, you're probably all wanting to know what's next. Where do we head to from here? We've had a very informative session on euthanasia. So where we're heading to next is in working groups. I would like you to all brainstorm concepts or mind maps on the issue of euthanasia that we could work and have as a sort of a foundation piece for an upcoming presentation that we could do as a mock exercise for the South Australian Parliamentary Committee that are looking into the issue of euthanasia. So this exercise is just the beginning. We'll be looking at this over a number of weeks, but today's lesson and activity, I'd just like you to focus on thinking about the issue of euthanasia, create a mind map of the issue, what you believe is important, and some of the aspects that you, if you were to be making a submission or a presentation to the South Australian Parliamentary Committee looking into euthanasia, what would you be wanting to present to them? So let's all get to work on our mind map on this issue, and we can present our findings as a group at the end of the lesson. Thank you very much, and I can't wait to see your amazing mind maps.